James Knight says his Wilmington spot has it all. A great location near the downtown area, prices that won't break the bank, and sweet corn cakes that feel like a hug. For next level Mexican pub fare, he recommends visiting Del Pez.
Del Pez came from the idea of incorporating the traditional elements that you will find on a gastropub and incorporating imported elements and imported ingredients and recipes that you will find in a traditional Mexican restaurant with the objective of having very unique dishes that combine them into like something extraordinary. Definitely the guacamoles are something that we're known for. Also our nachos. We specialize on tacos. Burgers are one of our big things that we offer as well. We have wonderful things like the short rib. We use imported Mexican cola to make a raisin reduction. It's a delicious way that represents the gastropub really well. The whole entire idea the philosophy that we have as a company is to be able to create the right atmosphere for them to create a memorable experience, and we give them enough reason to come back.
So James, you're a big fan of Del Pez. Tell us why you picked it.
I picked Del Pez because despite it looking like kind of like your basic, like, hey, we're trying to be cool pub on the outside and on the inside, when you go in there, the food is like very, very much very close to your around the corner taqueria. Like don't be fooled by like the basicness of the look of it.
And so what's your go-to dish?
I go for the pub tacos.
Oh, pub tacos.
Yeah, I didn't get them this time, but because that's what I usually get. I was like, I'm gonna try something different this time.
This time you got tostadas.
This time I got tostadas, lamb tostadas, which were so good. And they were almost as big as this plate. The meat was fresh, the lamb was fresh, the queso fresco was exactly like it was, like it was fresh. And it was so cheap. Like I just gush about this place every time I talk about it, which I feel like I'm gushing about it right now.
And so Andy, you got the nachos.
I did.
You started out with nachos. Tell us about that.
Which I thought, my wife and I got the nachos because nachos felt like a really hard thing to do differently or better. It's like, for nachos, what are they going to do? And we were really pleasantly surprised. The nachos were really, really good because they didn't use cheese. They used like a queso fresco like sauce almost, and then it had sort of a chimichurri under that, and it was really good.
You also got the burgers.
Yeah, so I felt like we did the nachos, and they advertised themselves as a Mexican gastropub, and I felt like I had to honor both parts of that. So I thought, all right, I'm going to do the burger. Burger was super solid. It had egg on top, which is like, I love egg on a burger.
Egg on it.
And it had avocado, which I also really like. But the real kicker was no bacon. They used like thick sliced pork belly. Awesome. I mean, it was a mess, right? It was a good thing we were married because like I looked super uncool eating it, but like
you have to unhinge your jaw to put it into your mouth. Yeah.
No, I'm still like.
Wow, that was adventurous getting a burger at a Mexican restaurant. Do you order like fried chicken at a Chinese restaurant too, or?
Yes, Chinese restaurants make great fried chicken.
It's great.
But I felt like, we did a Mexican thing. I wanted to do a gastropub thing. And I think the archetypal gastropub thing is the burger, right? Yeah. So
that makes sense.
I did the burger, and it was a solid burger.
So Irene, you started your meal with the guacamole. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. I always like to start with guacamole at a Mexican restaurant. I feel like it's a good way to see how it is and compare it to other places. And it was really great. It was very chunky the way I like it. It seemed to be freshly prepared. So we got the meal off to a good start, and we had a ton of food. We got guacamole and the tacos that you like so much, and ceviche. Then we each had an entree. We had chicken and different things for entrees. And then we also got a couple of desserts. I think they had 2 desserts that night, so we got both of them. Didn't have to decide which one to have. Ton of food, and brought home a ton of food too.
So how did it stack up to other Mexican food places that you've eaten at?
I would say if you live in the neighborhood, it'd be a great place to go, great atmosphere, great music. But maybe not if you lived in Center City or somewhere in the Philadelphia suburbs where there are other places closer that would have, authentic Mexican food.
Great. And so this place also bills itself as a bar with lots of tequila, lots of cocktails, lots of mezcal, which is a Mexican delight. James, what drinks did you order this time?
What didn't I order? I had a couple of Mexican mules, which are Moscow mules, but with tequila. which really good, really delicious, very smooth. And my date got a coconut margarita, and I tasted it, and I was like, I will also have a coconut margarita, because it wasn't heavy. It wasn't like heavy coconut milk. It was very smooth, very light. And the taste was just like you just wanted more of it.
Irene, what did you order for
We
drinks?
had margaritas. I was a little surprised that one of them came in a mason jar rather than in your typical kind of margarita glass with salt on the edges. And we noticed when we left, they had a great beer list, but we hadn't seen it because it was only at the bar. It wasn't on the menu or at the tables.
Right.
So we felt like we missed out a little bit by not ordering more beers.
So was your waitress, because I know you had a little bit of a service
We
issue?
did have a little bit of a service issue.
Tell us a little bit about that.
They just seemed like they could have been a little more attentive. Like when we ordered appetizers, entrees, desserts, drinks, we had a big meal, but they never cleared our place. So even when our dessert came, it was like moving things around to find a place to put the desserts. It was like, that might be your key, that it's time to take some of these dirty plates away. It wasn't very appetizing. Now
So we
maybe
had
it was
really
a
different
Sunday night.
experience, actually. Our waitress was perfect. She came over the exact right amount, but not too much. I find often when you're in an empty restaurant, waiters and waitresses don't have that much to do, so they just keep coming over. But she was great. She came over at exactly the right moments to keep the meal moving, but not so much we felt rushed.
So what did you think of, aside from the meal itself, like the ambiance of Del Pez?
So it's interesting. When I first got to the restaurant, I was having a sort of negative reaction to it. And it was great to go with my wife, who obviously knows me really well, because she said, Andy, you're not talking about the restaurant, you're talking about the place. So I work in urban redevelopment. I have a definite, this is like hip check to my own snobbiness, right? I have a definite preference for like organic downtowns, places like Passyunk Avenue that have history and have changed over time. And the whole atmosphere is very synthetic there, right? It's a all built at once office park with some apartments, and all the street grid is kind of new. So there's no like patina to anything. And so I was reacting to that. She was like, no, how about the restaurant? And I actually thought, given that they had a big blank space in a sort of generic building, they actually spent a lot of time thinking about design. They had this really neat sort of curve motif that they used in the bar and the bathrooms and the tables. And it was a sort of neat design aesthetic. And then I actually really enjoyed all the food. So when I realized that I had to separate my reaction to the restaurant from my reaction to the setting, I got much more into the restaurant.
Yeah, they really got creative with that space. You would think that, in some type of office park it'd be a little
They
sterile.
could have gone
but
straight TGI Fridays,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
atmosphere
they
was
easily
great.
could have.
Yeah.
It almost comes across because outwardly, and when you first walk in here, it's like, oh man, I know what this place is.
Yeah.
But it's the complete opposite once
Yep.
you get the food.
James, since you picked Del Pez, sum it up for us.
Visit Delaware, please. No, it's great. Eat there. It's no different than your local taqueria.
Irene, sum up your experience at Del Pez.
I think if you live in the neighborhood, it's a great place to go. It has a great atmosphere, and I think it's probably very family friendly. And I loved the music. Great playlist.
And Andy, sum up your experience at Del Pez.
I think it's definitely evidence that the large scale bar thing has been elevated from a food perspective.
For your own queso fix, head to Del Pez, located at 400 Justison Street in Wilmington, Delaware, 302-691-7974. Open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week and brunch on weekends. Reservations are accepted, and the average tab per person is around $15 to $20.